Hello everyone, Masculine Entertainment's here.
And Mama Entertainments. Welcome to our podcast.
Today we're going to talk about one of our favorite gone but not forgotten cartoons, Xiaolin Showdown!
We'll be covering the 3 seasons of the first series, the characters, including villains, and its really crappy, non-canon, sequel, reboot, revival, whatever.
It's so bad no one knows what it's supposed to be. Let's go! Gong Yi Tan Pai!
Alright, so let's get talking about Xiaolin Showdown, an American animated TV series that originally aired on WB Kids and was created by Christy Hui.
Yep, and I remember this show airing many years ago when I was really little. It'll air on Saturday mornings. It was one of those Saturday morning cartoons, but didn't feel like it when you watched it after a while. And I didn't watch it Saturdays, oddly. I watched it Sundays, actually, before we went out. Mm-hmm. And I remember a couple episodes, just not a lot. It was like very vague. I remember some images. I remember being on promotions, and that's it. And it turns out it had tons of promotion with trading cards, a video game, a website. There was just lots of stuff for this show. You don't even see it anymore.
Well, now at least we do have the DVD series for seasons 1, 2, and 3 available on Amazon.
Right.
So bye.
Yeah, so we got to get those.
So, it originally aired from 2003 to
2006. It got like you said, it got 3 seasons and 52 episodes. And then once it ended, they had on Cartoon Network 2, and that's where I saw it the most when they started airing the reruns.
Too bad they still don't have it instead of that Teen Titans Go.
I'd rather see that. And then, as you know, it got a sequel, I think, called Xiaolin Chronicles.
Yes, Cracklin Chronicles.
And it was previewed on Disney XD. And like, you allowed this to air?
Well, let's just be grateful that it got canceled. The best news ever.
One season only, and it said, oh, it's just a standalone series. It needs to be alone. We'll get to that later, but yes, just know, you all know this is a crappy show.
Crappy sequel, yeah. So let's talk about the best incarnation of it, which is Xiaolin Showdown.
It's the only incarnation as far as I'm concerned.
What was the main synopsis of the entire show?
Okay, so it actually had 3. It changed every season, but for the first one,
start with season 1.
It's supposed to be 4 monks. It's Omi, Kimiko, Raimundo, and Clay. And it's supposed to be trained to become Shaolin dragons. Okay. So I guess it's one of those martial arts series.
Right.
And they have to find these little artifacts called Shingon Wu.
Sounds really funny.
Right. Sounds like something else. Like maybe it's a drink. And they're supposed to go around the world, and they find these little artifacts that were hidden by one of the original dragons. His name Grandmaster Dashi. Yeah. And they use these to keep him from out of the hands of evil.
Right.
And if 2 of them end up getting it, they have to go into a Xiaolin Showdown for whoever wins it.
Right. So the master was Master Fang?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And they had dragons, Dojo.
Dojo, Kanojo, Joe.
I think so. Dojo, Kanojo, Joe. Oh, the Kanojo clan. You never saw anymore of the clan. So how big is it?
And like you said, they were battling the forces between good and evil. And in this first season, the 2 evils, the main evils, were Jack Spicer and Wooya.
Yeah. Yeah, and apparently she's a 1500-year-old witch from the past, and somehow she was trapped in this box by Dashi, and then years later, Jack opens and releases her.
Jack opens the box.
And his dad sent it to him. It's like, why would you send your son this? Why?
And she gets out, and she's in what's supposed to be human form, but she still looks creepy.
She's like a ghost right now. She's like a little ghost thing.
Right.
And then when she gets her human form, she looks worse.
And she was voiced by Cree Summer.
In the other series, yeah. Okay. Later on, when they couldn't have, I think it was Susan Silo.
Okay, Susan Silo.
And then later on, it was Cree Summer for the sequel series.
And then the main characters were voiced by some animation greats. Omi was voiced by
Tara Strong.
And then we have Raimundo.
Voiced by Tom Kenny, and she didn't even know it was Tom Kenny.
Okay, we'll tell about that in a second. And then we have Kimiko.
Greg Delisle.
And then we have Clay.
And he was, yeah.
Okay. So, yes, the embarrassing story is Rascal and I were watching Xiaolin Showdown, and I was watching it literally for one of the first times. And she told me that this 15-year-old boy, Raimundo, that he was voiced by Tom Kenny. And I'm like, that's not Tom Kenny. And she says, yes, it is. And I'm like, no, it's not Tom Kenny. That is a teenage boy. And so we went back and forth. Back and forth, back and forth. So she said, okay, well, just wait to the end, and I'll show you it's really Tom Kenny. Well, I was pretty confident that, hey, Rascal didn't know what she was talking about. This was some teenage boy. How could she make this mistake? I know she loves Tom Kenny and pretty much can figure it out every time. But I said, this time she was wrong. I had her. And imagine the shock on my face when the darn credits said Tom Kenny. I still cannot believe that this grown man, who is not, if he's not in his 50s, almost there, sounds like a teenage boy, convincingly.
Oh man, I told you it was him.
So I learned that forever more when it comes to Tom Kenny. I never doubt her anymore. All hell Rascal. She knows Tom Kenny. Whatever show he's in, as soon as the character comes on screen, she goes, that's Tom Kenny. So now I just take her word for it. I don't even question it anymore.
And when she sees the end, you're like, how do you know? I just heard him for so long. He's been in just about almost every show I watched when I was little. I kind of developed an ear for it.
So back to season 1 and how it left its print on animation history by being the first American show of its kind, like this.
Right. And instead of going after, making fun of Japanese culture or parodying anime, instead Christy Wee wanted to do Eastern culture. And a lot of people thought, oh, this is ripping off Avatar because each of them can control an element of nature, and they go around the world, and in the culture, they all thought, oh, this is Avatar, and they said no, and they found out this was a year before Avatar came on.
So maybe it actually in some way inspired the writers of Avatar.
Right. Because it was, it's just a rip-off, and then you get to that, and it's like, oh, I was wrong.
So let's talk a little about the storyline and how it starts off in season 1.
Okay.
And a little about how it progressed and how it ends, and the characters, how they appeared in season 1.
Okay.
Before they got a little more development.
Okay. So first off introducing them and the cast, what the story is, and what they have to do each time to become Xiaolin Dragons.
Now, what brought them together in the beginning?
I think all of them were supposed to be trained to become Xiaolin Dragon. That's the only thing. I thought they would kind of get to that later, which they actually should do if they ever bring the show back. They never explain how did they get chosen. How did they get chosen to train? How did Feng know that they would be the next Xiaolin Dragons? Because there's like a whole nother story there that's waiting to be told, and it's just nothing. Because they just show up and they say, these are the next ones you're supposed to train. It's like, that's it. There's no explanation why they're there, who sent them there. Was it for, originally just to have them study or just to learn, and then it turned to that, or where they really were destined to be Xiaolin Dragons and they had to be found.
Or maybe, he was trying to recreate the group that he had 1,500 years ago, which we'll talk more about later, but maybe he was trying to recreate the group that he had that were to be the dragons, that included some future characters, including Master Dashi. Right.
And for the base of this first season, it was just pretty much a routine of the Shingaru activates and Dojo goes into, I don't know, a fit. Or what he sneezes,
his
burps,
little tail will vibrate.
Right. He sneezes, he burps, he gets allergic reaction.
Breaks out to
he starts twitching and starts going transforming, and then they had to go find a Shingamu with the somewhat silly names sometimes. And then they will find it if Jack Spicer or some other villain was coming in together, they had to grab it. And then Xiaolin Showdown, and then they would have these really elaborate arenas where they have to fight, and it's a different thing every time. It's never the same.
And that was pretty neat, because that's nothing that I'd ever seen, or I think had ever been done on an animated series, where you had these type of battles that were unique every single time.
Right.
So
they never reuse it twice, or you have to go to this specific place. They would just have to come up with a challenge off the top of their head, and then they wager whatever they had, and then whoever won got the Shingamu they're going after plus the loser's artifact.
Now, usually the loser and the one they battle against most was Jack Spicer.
Right.
And he's voiced by
Danny Cooksey?
Danny Cooksey, who used to be a long time ago. He played a child actor on Different Strokes. And he also was in Terminator 2. He played the friend of, I don't remember the kid's name, but he was his friend, and he was talking to him and telling him about saving his dog in Terminator 2. And he's also friends with J.G. Quintel.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a little backstory for you on Danny Cooksey. And he's actually redheaded in real life, so they kind of based how he looks in the series on how he looks in real life.
Right. And yeah, mostly they would just fight Jack. Sometimes they had some other villains, like they had Panda Bubba, who's like a mob boss. They had Cat Nappe, looked like Catwoman. But it was Catwoman.
But I love the name Cat Nappe.
Like, no, they didn't. I think she was just one Catwoman. That was it. Catwoman as a girl, a cat girl. They also had some maybe one-off villains, like they had a giant flower that gained consciousness. It's supposed to be an evil, like literally the bad seed. And they had some guy from Russia. I'm sorry, I don't know his name. They had lots of villains, but yeah, you're right. One they fought the most was Jack. And sometimes for a while you didn't know who was gonna win. There was sometimes he would actually win, and then it just spawned into he was so stupid he can't win.
And I think what was interesting about his character is, at first he was a serious contender, and then a little later on in the season, he became like a joke, like a joke villain that you didn't take seriously, especially after he started letting Wuya kind of direct him in which Shangon Wu they needed to find, and how to fight, and how to backstab and betray the 4 Shaolin trainees. So. Yeah, and you started to think, he was not a serious contender, which changed later. Right,
and he always have robots, they call it Jackbots. They would fight for him. And at first,
he must have an unlimited amount of capital, like Batman, because he had everything in the world built for him. He was at no loss for money.
Yeah,
unlike Doofenshmirtz, whose ex-wife gave him money. You never knew where Jack Spicer's money came from.
Right. He just built these robots just like that. Next thing you know, more like, how many robots you got?
So no matter how many times they got destroyed, he was always able to afford to build them back. Right.
It got ridiculous. And some of them actually were good ideas. Like he had one of like a chameleon robot and pretending to be Chemical. That was actually a pretty a creative idea, and it was working for a while because they made sure it was like her for a while.
And like the name implies, it was chameleon, like it would change and adapt to whom it was talking to, and it even changed outfits once, which was
right. Like wow, it really was like a chameleon.
And then the other villain we were talking about, the main one, was Wuya, and as we mentioned, she was a 1,500-year-old witch. Well, actually, she had to be older than that, because 1,500 years prior to that, she was put in the box, so she was way older than 1,500. You never found out her exact age.
Right.
And her main goal was trying to get her body back. I'm not going to say human, because
that was not human. No, they said witch, so no, she was no human.
So she was trying to get her body back, and she was pairing up with Jack Spicer so that his goal was to control the world, and her goal was to get her body back, and eventually to backstab Jack Spicer and control the world instead.
Right. And then at the end of the season, she finally did get her physical form back with the help of Raimundo, because like they had the end of the season, remember they had that giant, they had that giant monster and they defeated it, and when he didn't level up, he was upset because he disobeyed, so he didn't get to level up, so he was stuck at the basic level, and then eventually he turned on them, and Omi kept thinking
out of jealousy and disappointment, and at first he did not understand that he did not get what he wanted, not because Master Fong was mean or the others were so much better or they were trying to deny him that. It's because of his actions and what he did, and he had to learn that lesson.
Right. And he turned for a little bit, and then she got her physical form, and then she took over the world in like 10 seconds. Everything was in her control. Like, dang, that's quicker than Dominator. Jeez.
Right.
and then after a while, and then Raimundo reformed again near the end when Omi had to go back in time to get another box to trap Wuya in, and it only opened to the one needed the most, and he kept trying to open it still. He's like, but I need to open it! And Jack tried to open it. He's like, why can't I open it?
And from the beginning, I kept saying Raimundo, and you don't know. I kept saying Raimundo, and you don't know. I kept saying Raimundo, and finally, it was Raimundo who opened the box.
He realized what he did was wrong, and he got her trapped again.
And what I really liked about this series, not just season 1, but every season finale was an awesome cliffhanger.
Right.
They had really, really epic and just intense cliffhangers that I know that if people who were watching this live could not wait for the season to return because they just made it so dang interesting and so, high energy and epic, and you really want to know what was going to happen.
Right. And I think part of that's helped with Bill Motz and Bob Roth, who you know from many Cartoon Saloon projects.
And also we're still waiting for Eddies of the Realms Eternal that was supposed to air on Amazon Prime. And Amazon, we're still pretty pissed with you because it's been going on 3 years now and the show's nowhere to be found. And it was an awesome show.
That you picked other show, and all the other picks you made all got canceled. So you sure you want to rethink this?
But yeah, I'm sure that they had a lot to do with the writing in that first season of just how great it was.
Right. And then, unfortunately, only did one season, but you kind of they finished up the little arc that went from the end of the season to the beginning of the second one. And then, going to season 2.
No, before season 2, we also were introduced to a character named Jermaine.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to talk about Jermaine.
And people really liked him. There was an episode where they went to New York to find a Shinganwu, and then Omi got separated from the rest of the group. It became Home Alone 3, Xiaolin Showdown edition. And he found this kid named Jermaine, a basketball player, and he kind of bonded with him for a little bit, and he wore these weird... He made him wear this weird outfit so he blended him with the rest of the citizens.
And they made him this really cool character. And he was voiced by Lee Thompson Young.
Right.
And if you may remember him from the famous Jet Jackson that aired on Disney.
Right.
And unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. But, he was great as this voice actor, and he had so much promise. And they said he was such a nice guy. So, unfortunately, we can't look forward to future projects, but this will be one of the elements of his legacy, this character whom, you just loved Jermaine from the beginning.
Right.
The first time he showed
Even
up
his
on
dialogue, sometimes he would have some pretty great dialogue. And they did, and they found the Shingon. We helped them find the Shingon Wu. It was like a little, was it a snake or something? I don't know what that thing was. It was kind of transparent, and it was like a dragon. It was something weird, and it was transparent. And then when they had the showdown, it kind of went Space Jam, and they had this basketball game in space, and Jermaine had to help him. And that was one of the best showdowns of the series.
Yes, definitely.
And he had to go, it was the two of them against a giant robot.
And they had some really great showdowns and really epic cliffhangers. So as you said, before we go into season 2, what do you think? What was it that made season 1 very memorable?
I think for the tone it was for a Saturday morning show. Usually you have to have ones that were either fully comedy or fully action, like Gargoyles. That was fully action. You have Looney Tunes or something. I know they have more shows on than that, but whatever you got on that was comedy had to stay that. But action had to stay that. This was the beginning of the balanced cartoons where you can have comedy, action, drama, and just
suspense.
have suspense and mystery. You can have this before. This was the first show to have all that mixed together, and it was more than just a one genre show.
Right, very true.
And I remember seeing that it had the highest ratings every morning it came on. it was the, like, I guess the show everyone wanted to see in the morning. They had some other things on too, like on 4Kids TV, which I won't talk about. But it was really, really popular, and they got tons of promotion and like the trading cards. They were on cereals for a little bit, so this was kind of the talk of the town for little kids at that time.
Right. And what's great about it, I think, is yes, it was directed at a particular target range. Of children,
right?
But this show is so awesome that any age range will enjoy it. So, regardless of your age, if you have not watched this series, definitely get season 1 and just introduce yourself to the show and just how well written it was for a kid's show. And I think the writing really, really is what helped season 1 to be memorable and make it where it's going to last a long time. It's not going to go away anytime soon. And thank goodness for the DVDs.
Right.
So now, as you said, let's move on to season 2, where the arc changes. And the arc actually started off in a cliffhanger from season 1.
Right.
With Omi trying to travel back to the past.
Right.
Tell us a little more about that.
Right. When Wuya took over, I figured out the only way to, defeat her was probably get the same box that Dashi used to trap in the first place. So Jack actually
Who was also voiced by Tom King.
Right, in his regular voice. And Jack was forced to help them because he said, "How am I going to take over the world if she's already done it?" So he sent him back in time to Dashi's time, and to get another box from him so he could trap Wuya again. And it kind of turned into another Xiaolin Showdown, and he kind of learned from him, and Dojo was still there. And it's like, you didn't change at all, did you? and
Is
he
this
finally,
where we learn about the original dragons?
Almost. That's one of them. Dashi was one of them, but you learn a
Right.
little more in the second season still.
So
And
that's where we are.
Right.
So is this
Right,
where
later
we
on.
Okay, got it.
Later on, because first he had to deal with this.
Right.
And then Omi froze himself, like Avatar Aang style, for 1,500 years, and somehow the exact same place where the Dojo was. I don't know how they did that. And when he was unfrozen, he was able to get the box back. Because he don't look a day over, was it 1,000?
And what's really odd about this show, in talking about that, is you don't know if it's just that all the characters live, thousands of years, or why all of these characters are all over 1,500 years old. And they're over because a new character who we haven't mentioned yet,
we'll get to,
and Master Dashi, and Master
Monk Guan,
right, and Master Feng. All of these people are way over 1,500 years old, and they look very, very young, but it's never explained. In this universe, do people just live a really, really long time?
Yeah, and that's what I'm assuming it's that, because they never say in there, like, 1,500 years, shouldn't they be, gone by now? They don't ever say that, so I think they just really live for a long time unless something happens to them, which would probably happen to Dashi. Unless something happens to them, I think they do live for a really long time.
Right, we're never told what happened to him. You just know that he's no longer there.
Right.
Or maybe when he was trapping Wuya in the box, maybe somehow he got trapped in the box with her.
Right.
Or he sacrificed himself to stop her making that box.
Right.
So.
Okay. So, after they defeat Wuya, it kind of goes back to the little routine of finding Shingon Wu. Because she's released, like, the very next episode by someone else. It's like, what was all this for?
And Raimondo decides that he should be back with his friend in training.
Right, and he would level up when he was ready to be leveled up. Right. He would really just take his time. And then, for a while, it just went back to routine. And then, almost halfway through, we're introduced to two new characters and a new villain. We're introduced to Master Monk Guan, as we mentioned, who was apparently a hero to Omi. And then, with Dojo, went with him to this other place where they meet the new villain of the season,
Chase Young.
And probably one of the most underrated villains ever. It's like, why doesn't anybody talk about him? I mean, you got all these villains from movies and stuff, but he was a pretty interesting villain for the time of this, before you had all this complexity writing of characters you have now.
One thing that made him really interesting was that despite him being a villain, because he also was one of the original dragons that trained with Master Guan and Master Dashi.
Yeah.
He had a sense of honor. You know, he's a villain, and you're expecting that he will do whatever it takes at all costs to win.
Right.
But whatever his word was, he kept. If he told you he wouldn't do something, he didn't do it.
Yeah,
if he told you he would do something, he did do
right.
it. He would not stoop to really, really low levels to get what he wanted or to do what he wanted. He had the lines he wouldn't cross. That's what I'm trying to say. And also, you find out more about his backstory and how he became evil, and that he wasn't evil. He was a Shaolin monk.
Right.
And he's just an interesting character for that reason. And you're also still trying to figure out how he is connected to Omi, because it is insinuated throughout the remainder of the series that somehow there's a connection between him and Omi, and we're guessing they're related somehow.
Right. And yeah, because there were several times in the series, before I get back to how he's introduced, I might as well go into this. There are several times where he just wouldn't fight Omi. There were times where he would train him, give him advice. If he owed Omi, he would do it unexpectedly. And if they fought side by side, they were pretty much in sync. So yeah, the theory is maybe he's some like really, really distant relative from the past.
And you could say, well, he was just doing it because he wanted Omi to rule with him. He said by his side.
Oh gosh!
But after the season finale for this series, which we won't mention yet, but even after he got his way and things returned to normal, he still did not change how he treated and related to Omi. He still had that, as you say, it was a friendly way he dealt with him.
Right. It was
very friendly.
With the others, he was pretty much the same reserve. And the villain, but when it came to Omi, it's like he has more respect for him.
Right. Exactly.
And we met Chase when, Master Guan was introduced in the same episode, and apparently he lost his...
It's one of the most hilarious episodes of the series.
Right. And apparently he lost his spear, which earlier he had like 100 of.
Master Guan.
Right. And he traded Dojo for it. And it turns out, and at first they're like, oh, he's not so bad. He was kind of feeding him a lot, and Dojo was just eating up like Homer Simpson. Yeah, and Chase Young was just feeding him, and Dojo was just eating like Homer Simpson, like a bottomless pit. Eventually, he was like, what the, how much are you going to eat? And it turns out that he was going to cook him for a Lao Mein soup. And that's how he gets his immortality and his
dragon
powers to turn into this giant lizard dragon creature.
And that lizard almost, to me, looks like kind of like an Aztec derived character more than the Asian or Eastern character.
It does.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was going to cook him for the dragon soup, which kind of makes you wonder how many dragons are really left in the world, was just Dojo left. And that was the whole point of him. He was going to get cooked, and he had to go save him. And it turned out Chase Young was no joke. He was hard to beat just by one person.
And he didn't care about the Shengon Wu.
Yeah, that was different.
Because he was so powerful that when he even did a battle for him, he's like, I don't want the Shengon Wu.
You can keep it.
And they were
he would just he would either have no use for it if he had whether he won or lost, he'd just give it to them.
Except for one.
Right, he used one, but as far as using it in battle, he just gave it to them. He's like, nah, I don't need this. He wouldn't even accept it in a trade when Jack tried to, work with him. He got all these Shengon. He said, I have no need for this. And every time, like, what else can I trade?
And this villain, Chase Young, became really popular in the fandom and still is.
Yes.
And he was voiced by Jason Marsden.
Right. And you may know him as Richie on Static Shock. You know him as Max from a Goofy movie and a couple other movies and shows. But I think this is probably one of his most famous roles is Chase Young.
Definitely. Because before then, honestly, I didn't know who he was. I'd watched Static Shock, but I didn't know that's who was voicing Richie. But now I definitely will remember Jason Marsden forever as Chase Young.
Right. And throughout the season, he does appear after the battle with them, and sometimes he would just visit Omi.
And he was the evil side called the Xiaolin side.
Right, the Xiaolin side. Like, what is that? And they always say the Xiaolin side instead of the dark side instead. And there were times where he would have somebody alone time with Omi if it happened. Like, they're looking for Shengon Wu and they had to split up or something. He would just show up. He would just, like, would you just materialize? The next thing you know, like, he won't be there. And then you turn around, he's there. Like, oh, where'd you come from? And there are times where he kind of almost like had little trainings with him. There was a time when there was another good episode with him where I think Jack took his powers. They trapped him in his little sphere, and he took his powers.
And he wasn't even worried. He was in the sphere,
and
he went to sleep. He took a nap. He knew that he was so powerful that I'm gonna get out of this, and he went to sleep.
And he also, I forgot to mention before I get to this, he also had this army of cats, like lions, tigers, leopards, that actually were warriors from different time periods.
And all walks of life.
Right.
Male and female.
Right. And my guess is maybe he defeated them in battle or something, and or made deals with them, and he had control over them, and they could turn into giant cats.
Right.
And that was his army.
They were really powerful. They weren't just like cats that had regular cat strength, like a cheetah. Or
I mean,
they
couldn't be
really powerful.
Yeah, because there were times where they almost lost because there were so many of them, or they were too strong. So it looks like the Xiaolin's weakness is animals.
Right.
Okay, now get back to the episode. They knew that Chase wasn't good, but they had to free him because Jack taking over would be much worse.
Oh yes, definitely.
So Omi went and freed him, and instead of probably backstabbing him or anything, instead he helped him take down Jack, and he just literally beat the daylights out of him. And then eventually, when the other monks found out, they went to get him, and he covered for him. He said, "What are you doing here?" And he pretty much covered for him, and said, "He's getting the Shenwan Wu back from me. I challenge you to Xiaolin Showdown." He's like, "What?" And he was kind of setting up everything for him so he wouldn't get caught,
right?
Because he helped him out. And at the very end, when he said, "Why would you help him?" Not like you owe him anything. He said, "Why would you?" And I don't even know why you would help him. You don't owe him anything. Then he realized he did.
Right.
So, and then now he probably owed him again for him helping him.
Right. Now, also, let's mention another villain that was introduced, who was responsible for Chase Young turning, and that was Roy Bean?
Yeah, Hannibal Roy Bean.
Hannibal Roy Bean.
Also voiced by Tom Kenny.
And literally a bean.
Yeah.
He was a really small, evil, wicked, powerful bean.
Yeah, it wasn't a joke. He had this Dominator style suit, and then you had him, and he was like a little bigger than your pinky.
Right.
That's it. And he was literally the ultimate evil in a tiny package.
And I think the addition of both of these villains really bumped up the series in season 2.
Because now Fate of the World was starting to tip over even more, not with Chase. With Jack, it was kind of like, With Chase, it increased, and Hannibal was worse. I mean, you pretty much got the end of the world near the end of the second season.
And then you also had Wuya, who everyone knew Chase Young's notoriety. Everyone knew him, and everyone was afraid of him. But she wanted to try to use him to get her body back. It wasn't working with Jack, so I guess she said, well, you know what? I'm going to go to someone else who I can probably try to backstab once I get my body back.
And he never fell for it at any point. He knew when she was going to double cross him and knew how to stop her.
So the season finale for season 2 was pretty epic. It was even more epic than season 1.
Right.
And it involved all of these characters we're speaking of, because Chase Young ends up getting Omi to go to the dark side.
Right. And he Trashmaster Funk in what they call the yin yang world. And they had a yin yang yo-yo. I could not quit laughing at that. And they had a fake one where it was made in Mexico. I love that gag, though. And Omi went there to get him back. And what he didn't know is that if you don't have one of those yo-yos when you go into the world, you lose whatever side you had that you're with. So if you're evil and you go into the world, you come back good. But if you go in there and you're a good guy, you come back evil. Exactly. And it's in your other half is trapped inside the world with the chi, and you're stuck in that half.
Spirit world.
Right. And when he did that, and Omi came back evil, Chase took over the world.
Because Omi went ahead to side with him.
Right. He was probably one of the most powerful warriors. And with him by his side, there was nothing else could stop him, so he brought on Armageddon.
And he was actually somehow taking some of Omi's power,
right,
and using it for himself,
right,
which was again something pretty neat, different that hadn't been done in a series.
Right.
He's like, you can rule by my side, you can rule by my side, but literally he would turn him into a cat, just like he did the other warriors that he had captured.
Right.
Naomi was like his little pet. He would pet his head, and
right,
he treated him much differently than he treated all the other warriors he had
exactly
captured. But still, he was under Chase Young's control.
Right.
And Wuya got her body.
Right.
And
she finally got it and stayed like that.
And right when she got her body, she tried to summon all her evil minions, and nothing happened. And she tried it again, and Chase Young was like, do you think I'm that stupid?
Yeah, dude, you really think I let you have all your power back so you could do that? And she said, oh, true. I would have done the same thing. Well played. She even admits that, like, yeah, I was going to do that. I respect that.
But for that season finale for 2, the world was dark and black.
Yeah, and everything turned to stone.
And turmoil, and it was just really, really bad.
Right.
Really
and he just
bad.
became his playtime, because he just started doing weird stuff. It's like, what are you doing?
And
he cooked birds.
And Omi's side that was evil was, he was new to the Halen side. And all he wanted to do was fight and battle, fight and battle. And he was very, very mean. There's no other way to put it.
Violent.
He was cruel and mean and violent.
Right. And one thing he still kept was the running gag they always have in the show. He would always get different phrases wrong. Mm-hmm. And Ramuna always had to correct him. And he said, all you have to do is fight, fight, fight. Bring it off. And he said, bring it on. Off, whatever, just fight. And he will always do that throughout the whole show. He will always mess up a phrase, and Ramuna always had to correct him. Mm-hmm. Like, he's like, I'm in heat. He said, no, you're on fire. We'll polish their watches, clean their clocks.
And I did forget about that. That was great. You were waiting to see what he would screw up next, and you always laughed. But he was such an endearing character. You loved it. So the season 2 finale again was pretty dark and leading us into season 3. But I think what made season 2 so memorable were the additions of Chase Young and Hannibal Bean.
Yeah.
And Wuya getting her body back and bringing a whole new element.
Right, because now she had powers that can get her around rather than just be a little ghost.
Right. And we also got to see how the Shaolin warriors would function without Master Feng being there, because he was the one who would direct them what to do, give them, wisdom and guidance and counsel and training. But after he was trapped in the spirit world, the yin yang world, they didn't have him, so they had to go back and remember all he taught them and fall back on the training and on the learning and knowledge. And you got to see the little eras they created, and you got to see how they were pulled, actually. Sometimes between doing the right thing and sometimes maybe doing something wrong to try to win or get Master Feng back. But the great thing is, they always ended up doing the right thing.
Right. And another thing they also did was really interesting and didn't see coming was that when they were trying to get Omi back, and they went to the Yin Yang world to get back his good chi, because he was kind of a monster. He almost killed them.
Yes.
Like, and I'm not even gonna try to cutify or something other. He was gonna kill them right then and there if they hadn't got him, because he was ready. And they got back his good chi, and Jack Spicer went in the world with them. And when he came out, he was good.
And he was helping them again, as you said, because Chase Young had won, and Wuya had switched sides and left Jack and went to Chase. So yeah, he wanted to help them so he could, still be a what was considered a petty criminal.
Right. And then...
But his good side was so good. Oh my God.
Right, so there was good in him after all. It's just he didn't want to do it. And then he had on a little vest. He was always happy, and they were creeped out by him. And then when they were all their cheese were taken by this monster that came out, he was the only one left that could save them. And they said, well, if you go into the world, you're going to come back evil and never go back. He said, I know, but it's for the greater good. And they're like,
help his friends.
Yeah, they'll help my friends and the world. And he's like, I'm going to miss you. And he actually went there and figured out what to do and got their chi back and made sure it was a part of them that stayed there. So... distract the monster, and he saved the day right before turning back evil.
He sure did. So, and I think we forgot to mention about Jack Spicer. Yes, he was a joke, but when Omi went back to the past to try to change, the presidents and save his friends, Jack had come to power. We completely forgot to mention he had come to power. He was like an emperor, and he was so
when
evil.
it was in the future.
You really realize that he had the capacity to be very dark and evil and just wicked beyond all belief. And in that future, in that particular future that occurred, he had captured all of the warriors and he had imprisoned them until they were really, really old. And he was killing people left and right, literally killing people.
It's like, oh, geez.
He had taken over Chase Young's warriors that he had. He had Chase Young spread-eagled, like
Chinese torture,
Chinese water torture dripping on him. And Chase Young was still smiling, and he was like, "This is just temporary. I know I'm going to get out of here." But Jack, really, with the right grooming and the opportunity, it showed you in that future that Jack was not a joke. Jack could really be evil and cold-blooded and a killer. And this was really something dark for a kid's cartoon.
So it showed for both seasons he could either be a really good person and a hero, or he could be a true villain. It's kind of like with El Tigre, where you didn't know if he was going to be a hero or a villain, so he could literally have the ability to do both.
And I think it was so important that it was showing you whom was mentoring him. And that part of that determined how he turned out. He was like kind of like I would say a blackboard where whomever was mentoring him, he would pick up their traits or he would emulate them and copy them. And if it was someone like he was copying Wuya. And then when Chase Young came along, he started imitating Chase Young and wanting to be like Chase Young. And he was going, please, please train me, take me under your wing, let me be your trainee. So he was like a blank slate. That's what I'm trying to say. An open book that the people around him could literally influence. Even the Shaolin warriors influenced him. When he was around them at times during the season, he would be more of a good person than a wicked person when he was around them, and then something would snap or something would happen and remind him that he was supposed to be evil, and then he would go back to being the Jack that they knew.
And there was a time where he joined them for a little bit because he had nowhere else to go, and he actually was good for a little bit. They were expecting him to turn. He did turn later because he had the ability to again, but he actually was trying to be good for a little bit, and then you found out when they had like a truth or dare game, he said, did you choose to be evil? Because if he screws up doing that, then he can't be blamed for it. Then it's easier to be evil than it is to be good. So he chooses to be evil. So if he does something wrong, it's no big deal than it is when he's a hero.
So he was wishy-washy, but he was also a very complex character in the way he was drawn and in the way he was presented. He's a great character. He really is. And the last thing about this, before we move on to season 3, that would get you is that there were times you actually liked Jack. You found yourself liking him, even though you knew he was a bad guy.
And he still got a fan base.
You weren't cheering for him unless he was doing good for the Shaolin warriors, but you found yourself actually liking Jack when he would have these changes of hearts or these turns and different things. So that's what made that season, to me, all those elements most memorable. So we're going to move on to season 3.
The last one.
Yes, unfortunately the final of the series. And in season 3, what happened?
Okay, so after they stopped Chase and the world's reverted back to normal, it kind of goes back to the routine again.
Remember they had to save Omi too.
Oh, okay. Well, I did explain that. Remember they had to go into that world and get the chi, and then what led to the last 2 parts of that arc.
But also remember, they were challenged to
a showdown.
A showdown.
Yeah, if they lose, then they become his servants. If they win, they free Omi, and then the world goes back to normal.
Because Omi was so honorable that they said, come on, Omi, let's go. And he said, no. I said that I would serve him, and I keep my word. And they were like, what? And so Chase knew that no matter what happened, Omi wasn't going to leave. And again, a testament to there was good in Chase, and he says, okay, then I challenge you to the
showdown.
And like you said,
he accepted all the turns. He said one thing, he only fights with us. He said fine.
And the other thing was that where were his warriors. They had to stay animals.
No, they had to be human.
Right.
So it'd be equal.
And they couldn't use any Shangon Wu.
Right.
Right.
Just only. But it's only our martial arts or whatever. Well, you can't do that much because you did a soccer match. So yeah, they did a whole soccer game for the fate of the world. Like, well, of course, this is what you pick, right? Mm-hmm. And after they get back, Omi's little dots, and that's literally what they call them. They're dots
on his forehead.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the world returned to normal. Like, that was intense for a long, long time. I just seen it for the first time. And I can't imagine you waiting every week. Only
right.
now I can. Only it's worse. You wait months.
Right. And then also, Hannibal Bean, you got to find out a lot more about him.
Right.
And the original dragons. The original dragons. Chase Young, Master...
Monk. Gosh, I'm sorry. It was Master Monk Guan, Dashi, and Chase.
Yes, all tongue twisters. And this episode, the origin episode, was one of the best of the entire series.
Right.
Because they had baby Chase and baby Master Guan, and Dashi was even very young.
Right.
And Wuya was a young witch or whatever.
Right, she still looked the same.
And she looked exactly the same. But you knew that, that's what let you know she was way older than 1,500 years old.
So for that episode you're talking about, that happened at the very end of the series. They had a 2-part series finale called Time After Time. And one of them was going to become the leader. And they had to come up with their own quests and complete them. And if they do it, they'll be with some type of, what's it called? Wudai warrior. Mm-hmm. And be the leader of the team until the others level up. Mm-hmm. And Omi his quest, he wanted to go back in time and stop Chase Young from becoming evil. So they didn't have to fight because it was really starting to damage their work.
Right.
And when he went there, he went into the future by accident at first. Mm-hmm. And that's where the world you're talking about, where Jack took over the world and imprisoned them, and it was just horrible. And then when he had to work with the now older monks, and Master Feng, you're like, how old are you? You're still barely any older. He just had a crazy eye now. And he also traveled with Dojo, who I kind of gave him the idea. And they had to get back to Shengon Wu and then go back all the way in time so they could fix that.
Right.
And that's when that
Went
horrible...
back 1,500 years.
Right. And then that horrible moment...
was trapped in the box.
Right. And then, like I said, and then meet the original dragons. And then
they were all working together. They were all good at that time.
Right. And you got to see how Chase became evil. You were seeing what became of it. So Omi had switched this soup because Hannibal had promised, like, if he drinks this soup, he'd be immoral, he'd be powerful, and tricked him into thinking that he's the best.
And he had lied to him to influence him to drink the soup because he showed him a fake image of Master Guan being promoted and him not.
Right.
And Chase, unfortunately, he had that kind of narcissistic bent there.
Right.
Where when he saw that, he was like, oh no, I'm not going to do all this hard work and all of this, and you're going to be better than me. And that was his flaw. That was Chase Young's flaw.
Right.
That ended up corrupting him and him accepting Hannibal Bean's offer.
Right. And when Omi did, he switched the soup, so it was pea soup. And so you take me for a fool, and he didn't accept it anymore. And then you saw in the present day, he remained good.
And he was the one actually training the Shaolin warriors.
Right, because once again, Omi changed history. So instead, Hannibal offered it to Master Monk Guan, and he took it without batting an eyelash.
And you thought Chase Young was bad.
He was much worse than him.
He was even more narcissistic and self-centered. And there were statues of him everywhere.
Oh my gosh!
Everyone was expected to bow to him and worship him.
I'm like, man, you worse. And when we back to the present, it was even more messed up because all the villains were free except for Chase, and
he was a good guy now.
Right, right, and they were no longer at the temple. They had to hide. They had thrown Master Feng into the Yin Yang world, and he was lost. So they were on their own, and Clay was the leader, so they were on a farm. It's like, oh wow. And then they went into my favorite moment when Chase helped Omi, and he showed them where they were. This is our home. And then my favorite line of the entire series, this is my home.
And he looks like he has a little rat
and whiskers. But yeah, I told you he was actually a good leader, and Jack had joined him because he also lost his bad side in the spirit world, so he was helping them and being really la 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 la
right. Like he had been when he had become good in the yin yang world.
Right.
So. But yeah, this episode, and the reason we're skipping over everything else because pretty much everything for season 3 led up to the last two-parter. I mean, that's what it was all about. That's what it led to. And all of the questions, just about every question you want answered got answered.
Right.
And it was brilliant of them to show you not only a future world and how things turn out differently, but the past, and you got to see the beginnings for all these different people, and you got to see how it would have turned out if people had become the opposite of what you knew them as.
Right.
If circumstances had been just a little bit different.
It's kind of like that My Little Pony episode.
It was really, really good and very, very well done. And the sad part is, of course, they've got to get everything back to how it's supposed to be in the present, so we know that Chase isn't going to stay good, Mont Guan isn't going to stay bad, Master Fong isn't going to stay disappeared, they're not going to stay dirt farmers. Everything had to change. Right. And it was so brilliant how they did that also.
And Chase sacrificed himself to either I'll drink the soup and become evil so you can get free. And so you have to challenge them to a showdown. So it's for the fate of the war against all the major villains of the series.
Right. Which was an epic, awesome two-part. This is one of the best that I think I've ever seen in any animated series, how they ended season 3. I know that people were hoping for a 4, but unfortunately it stopped there.
Right.
So tell them a little more about the second part of the showdown and the warriors and them, as you said, having to go up against all the villains all at one time. They had banded together in this alternate universe. Right.
So when they got out of their cage, they went and found the Omi that was frozen, could unfreeze him so it could, undo what he did. And they were stopped by all the villains. And so Raimundo challenged everybody to 8-way cosmic Xiaolin Showdown for all these Shangon Wu. And it was like a long list, and for the fate of the world. And it also, like, so they kept switching out people, like, it was kind of like a tag team, so if you need to switch one out, you just tag them, and then they were next in there.
But the villains were cheating every step of the way, whereas the warriors were not cheating.
Yeah.
And at that point, as she mentioned, Chase had drank the soup, and so he was on the side of the villains.
Right.
So just about all the strongest people you thought were on the villain side.
Right.
And I have to say this because I know you're going to get to it, but how each warrior stepped up in this time showed you the strengths of each character and their personality, and that they all really, really were on the side of good, despite different events that had happened in seasons 1 and 2, affecting, their egos or the choices they made. When it came down to this final battle, they all were whom they needed to be.
Right. And it also became a defining moment for Raimundo, because throughout the whole series, especially happening in season 1, no one really expected much out of him. He was kind of, I guess what they say, the clown and the joke. He's the last one to level up. They don't believe what he says. No one really had any faith in him for the longest time, even his friends. And everyone kind of underestimated him. But when it came to this final episode, it showed who was going to really be the leader of the group.
And you could, when you were watching the episode, you could think back to all the different things that had happened with Raimundo and how each one was showing you his leadership material.
Right.
And especially in the episode where Omi went back to the past.
Right.
And every situation that came about, Raimundo had a solution.
Right.
He was the only one who was able to hands down and quickly come up with what needed to be done and tell you, this is what you need to do. This is what I need to do. This is what needs to be done. Let's just do it.
Right. Because you saw him when Kimiko was leader on short notice, Jack took over the world. When Clay became leader, all the villains took over the world. Owen becomes leader, they all get screwed. And it's like, yeah, he's pretty much the only responsible one left when it comes down to that.
And he was the only one you didn't see become leader. So I think that was kind of foreshadowing that you didn't catch when you were watching the other 2 seasons.
Right.
And I remember I kept saying, whom they were going to promote, and I kept saying Raimundo.
Okay.
Raimundo. It's going to be Raimundo. Right. I just kept saying it over and over.
Right, because you're getting a lot of hints too.
Yeah.
And eventually at the very end of the series, he finally leveled up and he became a Wu-Dai warrior and the leader.
And he was the only one. The others weren't.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the others would catch up, but for now he was going to be a leader, which unfortunately didn't get into. Now I want to mention.
And he was so worried about whether Omi was going to accept him or not. And you could see the worry on his face because prior, Omi had an issue when he wasn't promoted and was kind of like, oh, don't worry, you'll be as great as me one day, and so on and so forth. But he really thought, we forgot to mention, Omi also had an issue when Chase Young used Jermaine to turn Omi to his side.
Right.
And Jermaine trained... that's when you learn Jermaine has some really mad skills.
Right.
He really
you trained with Chase Young. I mean, you gotta be probably because he was gonna join them. But unfortunately, it didn't last. But they kind of forced him to say, "I'll take you up on that sometime." So you kind of thought he was gonna come back.
But during that time, he and Omi ended up having a Xiaolin Showdown, and Jermaine was a formidable foe. I mean, gosh, they were really at each other and trying to keep up until Omi decided, I'm not going to fight you, you're my friend. But you saw Omi's side of jealousy, where he was really, really jealous about Jermaine and Chase Young working him and telling him he was going to make him a master quickly. So Raimundo thought about that, and he was looking at Omi like, is he going to do the same thing to me, like he did with Jermaine, and we're friends too? But then Omi... became humble and bowed and was happy, and you just saw this giant happy grin on Raimundo's face. He was so happy. He was more happy about Omi being happy for him and wanting to still be friends with him than he was his own promotion. Right.
And it was funny because it's kind of like a little brother to him, because there were times where, he really... he hung out with him, and the way the dynamic was, it was like a big brother, little brother relationship. Definitely. And like I said, with him constantly having to tell him the correct phrases, and I'm in heat, you're on fire! Oh!
So the way it ended was awesome.
Right.
Because everything went back to the present after they won. And, we need to mention also, as we mentioned, the villains were all cheating. But no matter what happened, Raimundo wouldn't cheat. They kept saying, tap me out, tap me out. And he said no. And he went ahead and he took leadership.
Right.
And he stayed in there with all these villains. They were pummeling him and beating him and knocking him against walls. But no matter what happened, Raimundo, until it was his time to tap out, he didn't tap out. And I think that was a really, really telling part of his character where you knew this guy is the leader.
Right.
I mean, I had inclinations. I had thought about him. I kept saying it's going to be Raimundo. But then and there, that point there let you know he was the leader. He was the only one who had the ability and the strength to do what had to be done, and he didn't cheat. Right. And they were like, come on, Raimundo, tap us out. They're cheating, so what? We can't too. He's like, no, we're not going to do it. And he didn't. So.
Right. And it was kind of like Fear the World on the line, but they, won in the end. It really mattered. And the last thing I want to mention, at the end of the series, people were kind of saying that he shouldn't have been the leader. It should have been Omi, because he's in the title, and Raimundo was more susceptible to becoming evil again. They said, you let the one guy who can become evil at any time become your leader. Let's see how that turns out.
Totally disagree. Raimundo was the only one, even though each character had their strengths, Raimundo was the only one who showed leadership ability.
Right.
The entire series. When you thought about the different events and different things that happen. And just like in real life, every leader hasn't always done the right thing. Sometimes those leaders have been turned and then they've gone back to do the right thing. And in essence, it has made them a stronger leader, because they know what's the wrong way and they know what not to do, and they've been there, and they know what maybe the people who are under them, the feelings and emotions and things they'd be struggling with. All of those different things made Raimundo the leader he was meant to be.
Right. And it is really, like I said, it was before Avatar, but it was, I think, the true starter of complex cartoons. Avatar will always be a great cartoon, but I think this and Avatar was the start of complexity and in-depth characters and really genre cartoons. This was the beginning of it.
And I think just everything, the writing and the characters and the development makes it memorable. It's going to be remembered for a long time. It's not just going to go to the wayside. So very quickly, your favorite character, my favorite character. We can't go over favorite episodes because there's just way too many. Again, if you have not seen this series, it's available on Amazon. You can watch it on Amazon Prime for a fee now. It was free. Or you can buy the actual DVDs and, help promote it. But it's one of the best shows out there that you can invest your money in and buy for a series that's no longer here. Your favorite character?
Okay, my favorite character would be Raimundo, of course. Part of it, Tom Kenny, because he was really great as a character and the delivery of the lines and the dialogue. And it shows that throughout the whole series, it starts off like they all should be like this specific character, but it shows they weren't just cardboard cutouts. With Raimundo, it shows that he wasn't just the goof off. Like when he had several of his own focused episodes, it showed that he was more than meets the eye. In the first one where he lost because he was kind of cocky about the Shingon Wu, he studied so hard for like day and night, so he knew everything about a Shingon Wu, how a showdown works, all the things about, so he never lost again, which happened. And there was another one where like far near the end of the series where Hamburg went into his mine, so every time he went to sleep, this creature would come out and attack him, so he couldn't sleep. It was haunting him and giving him nightmares, so it's kind of almost killing him from the inside. I was like, ugh. And the time he had to literally fight his inner demons and a possible bean demon with that. It was just really intense, and it showed how much he's grown from the beginning of the series to here, and he was kind of just doing it all on its own while they were fighting something else that was connected to him.
Well, Raimundo, I think, is also one of the strongest Latin characters that have been in an animated series. He was complex, he was developed, he was likable, and in the end you learned that he was the only one who had all the qualities needed for a really good leader. So I really liked Raimundo. He wasn't my favorite character, but I really, really liked his character. I liked his funny side. I liked his little cockiness.
He always made fun of his design, where he's from Brazil. He's from Brazil, so he was designed weirdly.
But I really liked him. But my favorite character would have to say, in season 1 was Omi, and Omi was just so darned adorable. And like you said, when he would mess up...
He was like KO for you.
And he would mess up the little sayings and the terms, and he learned, and he was just... He had his little arrogance, but he wanted to just be so good. It was so important for him to really be good. And in his little narcissism, he also wanted to be the example for everyone. But he was an adorable character. And for season 1, I really liked him. But season 2 came, and I'm sorry, baby, Chase Young became my favorite character. He is still my favorite character. Again, I know he was a villain, but a great villain, but you also knew from his behavior and from things that he did that there was good in him. And it was great when they had that the 2-part finale for the 3rd season, because it took you back in time and you saw, he was a good guy. This is what he was most interested in, and doing right and doing good. But just that little flaw of him being narcissistic and jealous because Bean showed him a lying future that he turned. And all through everything that happened, you still know Chase Young had a good side. And Omi would always tell him, I know there's still good in you. I know there's still good in you. And he still was always hoping that he would come back to the good side. And Chase Young was there's no way to put it, he had his bling. He had his cave that looked like there was crap outside, but it was luxurious inside. He dressed the part. He acted the part. Chase Young is like one of the most awesome villains ever. Not only in terms of the character development and him being a villain, but also in how the character developed and how they made him complex. So for season 1 it was Omi, but seasons 2 and 3 it was Chase Young. So very briefly, we're just going to mention Cracklin Chronicles, which was the series that Disney developed after getting permission from Christine Wee to create another series based on the original characters, and it's Cracklin Chronicles because it is crap. It is one of the most crappy animated series I've ever seen in my life, and I've been here longer. It is horrible. It is horrible. It was one of the most horrible things Disney has ever done. Disney should suffer the guillotine for ever creating Cracklin Chronicles.
We'll have to get into like more into that later because there's just so much wrong with it from the characters to the designs to the animation
and to how they just destroyed the actual franchise. They destroyed it.
Right.
It became a laughing stock series. It was a joke, whereas the original series wasn't a joke. It was fun, but it was great. But there were absolutely no redeeming qualities to Cracklin Chronicles. There was nothing good. There's nothing good that I can think of that this series did, except give some Canadian actors some work.
Right. And the only person you remember from the original was Jennifer Hill and Tara Shaw. Everyone else had to be replaced. But I think that'll probably deserve its own podcast now because there's just so much wrong with this show that you can't fit it with a golden show.
Right.
And comparing it from the original to this one.
So we'll do a brief 30-minute podcast just for Cracklin Chronicles.
That should be enough.
Complete with some horrible pictures and some funny mashups that Rascal made, just attesting to the horribleness of the series.
And we know some of you have already seen it because I've seen Dudley just go on a tangent saying, "What the bleep is this crap? This is not Chase Young.
No,
what is this crap?"
And I would tell Rascal, "Don't call him Chase." She was like, "Don't. That's not his name. That is not Chase. Don't sully the name of Chase Young." And she would look at me like, "Are you serious?"
And then seeing it, I didn't even know he was a real character until I saw the original because I saw this one by accident thinking it was the original. I was like, we did not watch this.
I remember when she found it on Amazon and she said, "Okay, Mom, watch this with me." And I was looking at it and it wasn't even 5 minutes to end. I said, I'm not watching this show. I said, "This is crap. I'm not watching this show. This can't be the show that you told me was so great when you were a kid." "I don't remember this. This isn't what I remember." Right. And she was so upset, and then she realized later on that it wasn't the right show. And I was like, "Woo, thank goodness," because I refused to even watch that show.
And then I found the original one, and I was like, much better.
But then for humor and entertainment, after seeing the best show, we watched Cracklin Chronicles, and we got our laughs and giggles and hee-haws out of it. So that's the only good thing it's good for. If you want a good laugh of how an animated show should never be done and how characters should never be, watch Cracklin Chronicles.
Yeah.
It's actually called Xiaolin, spelled differently, but we'll tell you more about that later.
Chronicles. Yep, so that'll get its own podcast, and we'll get into more in depth about that because there was just so much great about Xiaolin Showdown. There was no room for the garbage that is Xiaolin Chronicles.
Right.
Well, that does it for this show. So next time we'll be covering
our list of the 10 greatest animated villains of all time. And remember, this is our opinion and what we think, but we're sure there are going to be some favorites that you actually love too.
Right. If you want to mention some too, you can mention them in the comments when we get to it.
Absolutely.
Okay, then that wraps it up. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Mama Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.
And reporters sitting, flashing lights, trying to walk around, man, who the hell are you? What you want to do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. Hit her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket, give it to you later.